Hey guys, it's Lainey, and today I'm doing a super awesome video. As you might be able to tell from behind me, I do have a deep obsession with this fantasy series called Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. Quite obsessed. December 9th is the release date of the third book, Gathering Darkness. I read it over the summer and absolutely loved it. The third book is so good. It is easily no contest my favorite book of the year. One thing I want to do to celebrate the release of the book is to fan cast the incredibly huge cast of Falling Kingdoms and give you guys kind of who I was picturing while I was reading it, or faces I thought of after the fact and thought they would do these characters complete justice. So first I would like to start with the core four, which of course is Cleo, Jonas, Magnus, and Lucia. When I first started reading it, I had a really hard time picturing Cleo with an actual like celebrity slash model face, but it wasn't until Kayla and I hosted Morgan Rhodes on a Twitter chat that she said that she originally pictured Gabriella Wilde as Cleo, and when I looked her up, I realized that was Cleo. I've recently started rereading the entire series because reading it 4 months ago has not sufficed my constant need to know everything about the series. As I was rereading it, I realized Gabriella Wilde was the perfect Cleo. Next up is Jonas Aguilon, our good old rebel. I pictured him as Bob Morley. You might recognize him from the 100. Maybe it's because his character in the 100 is also kind of rebellious. Like, he's tan, he's got the floppy hair going on, and he looks like he's done hard labor in the wine vineyards. Next up is Lucia D'Amora, the sorceress of the series. I pictured her as Alexandra Daddario, who played Annabeth in the Percy Jackson series. Her eyes are so big and so blue, which describes Lucia perfectly. And while I always picture Lucia to be just a tad bit younger and almost juvenile, when I look at Alexandra, she has like the perfect innocence to her face, but she also can look super evil, which fits Lucia perfectly. Lastly, of the core four is Magnus. Magnus, who I am in love with, who is my #1 book boyfriend. I just love reading his chapters. They're my favorite chapters to read in the series. I picture him as Douglas Booth. I have to accredit this to Jillian from Bookish to Nerdy because she put his face in my head and then I couldn't not get it out of my head. So picturing, Douglas Booth as, with his scar. I mean, he's already hot. The scar, oddly, only adds to that. Now on to some of the secondary characters. I wanted to start with everybody's most hated whiny bitch, Erin Ligarius, who is Cleo's sort of fiance in the first book, and he just is a bootlicker in the rest of Rebel Spring. I pictured him as Xavier Samuel, who was probably most recognizable for his role in New Moon. While I hate Erin and I hate how drunk and slimy he seems, Cleo always describes him as being really attractive. Even though she hates him, he's still very nice to look at. You look at him and you're like, he's hot. But then he could also be like a slimy weasel, which I picture Erin as. Next I have Brian, who is Jonas's Biffle, and Lysandra, who is the rebel girl that we meet in the second book. Brian, I picture, for some reason, I always picture sidekicks as Dominic Monaghan for some reason. I have no idea. Dominic Monaghan will always be in the back of my mind for no reason other than he always just looks like a sidekick to me. But in the front of my mind was Jeremy Irvine, and I think he would make a really good Brian because he, and I'm not trying to say this as like offensive, but he has a sidekick face, and I think, yeah, he was my Brian. Lysandra I pictured as Phoebe Tonkin pretty early on because Lysandra is pretty badass and she is super sassy and very opinionated. Because of this, Phoebe Tonkin immediately comes to my mind because she looks badass, but she also has heart, which we see in Rebel Spring and Gathering Darkness, that she does have a heart and she gets really emotional. Next, I wanted to mention the face for King Gaius, the King of Blood, and that is Russell Crowe. I pictured more of like an older Russell Crowe because I picture Gaius as kind of older but not too old because he can still fight and everything. But I mean, Russell Crowe just looks like he could be a king of blood, right? Next are the Watchers, Milena and Alexius. Milena I pictured as Cate Blanchett from The Lord of the Rings / The Hobbit. That was just immediately who came into my mind because she's supposed to be like super beautiful, like long blonde hair, just like glowing all the time. I do know that Morgan Rhodes mentioned in her Tumblr that she pictured Charlize Theron as Milena, which I can also really see because Charlize Theron is absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. Next is Alexius. I really don't like Alexius. He's probably my least favorite character. He gets more of a role, and I can't get into it right now because it just pisses me off. I pictured him as Hayden Christensen, and a younger Hayden Christensen, like Star Wars era. I think it's because I never really liked Alexius through the first book, through the third book, and I don't like Hayden Christensen very much because I always hear that he's like a big douche pants in public. Picturing someone I don't like for a character I don't like, and it just makes sense to me. Next is our good friend Nick Cassian, who is Cleo's best ginger friend. I pictured Cameron Monaghan. He is the redhead Mason from Vampire Academy, the movie, and he's just like the perfect, literally the perfect Nick. He looks, he looks kind of attractive, but then you're like, ooh, he's a ginger. That's what goes through my head when I look at ginger boys. I think he would make like the perfect Nick. He's perfect. Moving on. Lastly, I wanted to mention 3 more characters that 2 of them are introduced in Gathering Darkness, and one of them was mentioned in Rebel Spring, and that is the Creations, who are part of the royal family from a kingdom across the Silver Sea. Asher is the first one, and he is super like gorgeous. So I pictured the model Sean Opry. He just looks very nice. His sister Amara comes to Aranos in the 3rd book, and her I pictured her as Janelle Parrish, mainly because Amara, you feel like you need to hate her, and she has a secret agenda, and Janelle Parrish just has that look down pat. And lastly, and I'm really embarrassed about this because it's been a while since I read the 3rd book, but I totally forget what this guy's name is, but he's a rebel that Lysandra and Jonas kind of meet up with in the 3rd book, and I pictured him as Colton Haynes. He's gorgeous, and I forget his name, and I'm gonna remember it. It's gonna piss me off because I'm already filming this. That is who I pictured as this new rebel, who you will find out more about in the 3rd book. He's a good one. I like him. That is my fan casting of Fallen Kingdoms. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I decided to pick kind of major characters and not kind of the minor characters. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Get into this series because it is awesome, and hope you guys all have a really great day, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye!